Something unusual is unfolding inside Burkina Faso's corridors of power. Captain Ibrahim Traore isn't surrounded by ordinary guards. He's encircled by silence, precision, and unflinching loyalty. A masked sentinel shadows his every step. A man they call Khadafi commands the strike response. Another, known only as Number 3, listens, observes, and eliminates threats before they breathe. This isn't a security detail. It's a philosophy of survival, born in a land where betrayal travels faster than bullets. And today, we ask, who protects the protector? And what are they really guarding? Let's find out. They don't wear uniforms. They don't salute. They don't smile. When Captain Ibrahim Traoré walks into a room, they're already there, unseen, yet felt, like the shift in air before a storm. One stands slightly behind him, a masked sentinel whose eyes never blink during public appearances. Another lingers at the edge of every corridor, hand resting near his weapon but never touching it. And somewhere, always nearby but never in sight, is the man they call Number 3, the brain of the operation, listening, analyzing, memorizing faces and exits as if mapping danger itself. This is the core of Traoré's personal guard, the most secretive security unit in West Africa. A team so disciplined it has become myth even among soldiers. They are not part of the conventional presidential guard. They belong only to the revolution that brought Traoré to power, forged in the belief that loyalty must be proven by endurance, not rank. Their world runs on precision. Every route Traoré takes is tested twice, once by intelligence, once by instinct. Each building he enters is stripped of unpredictability, lights, windows, angles, and even the reflection on polished marble. Their presence is an equation, solved to ensure one result: the captain must walk out alive. It's easy to dismiss them as just another layer of security. But spend 5 minutes observing them, and you realize they are something else entirely. Men who've learned to see what others ignore. When the captain speaks publicly, one watches the horizon, another watches the crowd, and a third watches the silence between claps. They aren't waiting for a shot. They're reading behavior, the micro-movements of nerves and hesitation. In the Sahel, danger doesn't always arrive with a gun. Sometimes it's a phone call. Sometimes it's an ally who turns too quiet. Their formation tells a story of how Traoré understands power, not as a symbol of dominance, but as a fragile flame in a windstorm. He knows the weight of history, that Sankara was betrayed by a friend, that Gaddafi's guard broke ranks, that every African reformer who stood tall eventually fell not to invaders, but to those closest to them. That memory has shaped every detail of this unit's design. These men were chosen through field loyalty, not ceremony. Each served with Traoré in the Sahelian front lines, men who survived ambushes, hunger, heat, and fatigue. They've seen him fight, not command. That's why their allegiance is personal. It's not to the office of the president, it's to the man who stood beside them in trenches when bullets didn't care about titles. Even their silence has a hierarchy. The masked man represents proximity. He never leaves the captain's side. Khadafi embodies reaction, the one who moves when everything else stops. Number 3 orchestrates the invisible, the strategist whose radio rarely speaks, because communication itself is risky. Together they operate like a closed circuit. One senses, one acts, one decides. They train in isolation, live fire drills in the desert, night infiltration under cover, and drones, and intelligence exercises based on real coup scenarios. No footage exists of their sessions, no soldier outside the circle joins them. They've built their reputation not by bragging, but by what never happens. The coups that never succeed, the ambushes that never occur, the bullets that never find their target. To outsiders, they seem ruthless. To Traoré, they are a necessity. Because in a region where loyalty is transactional, he needed men who would rather die than hesitate. That is what separates them from all others. They don't protect his position, they protect his mission. And as Burkina Faso rebuilds itself amid threats, sanctions, and wars of influence, these men remain invisible architects of stability. You may never hear their voices, but every time Traoré steps into a crowd without fear, you're witnessing their work. But how did such loyalty become possible in a world where power usually corrupts it? Loyalty isn't born, it's engineered. And in Burkina Faso's new order, it was engineered in fire. To understand the men who guard Captain Ibrahim Traoré, you first need to understand the philosophy that forged them. Because this unit wasn't just created to protect a man, it was designed to protect an idea, that Africa can secure itself without asking permission. When Traoré took power in 2022, the world expected another military strongman. Instead, they got a soldier who refused to behave like one. He wasn't building palaces or parades, he was building trust. But in a country where betrayal had already rewritten history too many times, trust couldn't be given. It had to be tested. That's when he began selecting men, not from generals or decorated elites, but from the forgotten corners of the Sahel. Soldiers who had tasted hunger, fought with outdated weapons, and still didn't break. These were men who didn't follow orders because they feared punishment. They followed because they believed in a purpose. One of them was a sniper from the north, once wounded and left for dead, rescued by Traoré himself. Another was a comms officer who discovered a French-funded intelligence leak and refused a bribe to stay quiet. Each man brought a story of endurance, proof that loyalty wasn't emotion, it was evidence. Traoré's rulebook for recruitment was simple. You don't guard the leader until you understand what he stands for. Every candidate was questioned not about tactics, but about motives. What would you protect first? He reportedly asked. My life or my mission? Those who answered your life were dismissed immediately. Because this isn't a team of defenders, it's a circle of believers. Their loyalty is ideological, not hierarchical. They see Traoré not as a ruler, but as a symbol of the generation reclaiming Africa's agency, a soldier who turned defiance into policy. That's what makes them dangerous. Because a man defending his salary hesitates, a man defending meaning doesn't. This mindset explains their intensity. They don't joke in public. They rarely speak. They train longer than the National Guard and live apart from the rest of the army, in a compound that even government ministers can't access. The rule is absolute. No media, no pictures, no contact with outsiders. Visibility kills, one of them reportedly said. But behind that secrecy lies something more sophisticated than muscle, psychological conditioning. Each member undergoes intelligence resilience training, how to detect manipulation, how to spot deception in speech, how to resist coercion if captured. They're taught to see danger not as an event but as a pattern, subtle changes in tone, timing, or body language that reveal intent long before an attack ever happens. Traoré knows that coups don't begin with bullets, they begin with whispers. A rumor spreads, an officer delays an order, a convoy suddenly changes route. By the time blood is shed, the betrayal has already matured. His guards are trained to catch the disease in its incubation. This approach has quietly reshaped Burkina Faso's internal security philosophy, where Western governments build security through hardware, drones, surveillance systems, and expensive software. Traoré builds it through human discipline. He understands something most analysts miss. In Africa, stability isn't technological, it's personal. People betray systems, not bonds. That's why these men are not interchangeable. Each one is irreplaceable because each one carries a layer of Traoré's strategy embedded in his psyche. They aren't just trained to react, they're trained to anticipate him, to understand how he moves, thinks, and decides. In other words, they don't just protect his body, they extend his instincts. And that's what makes this circle nearly unbreakable. It's not a wall, it's an echo. Every move he makes resonates through them. Every danger they sense, he already knows. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. To understand this unit, you can't just watch what they do, you have to understand how they think. Their world runs on a single principle. Threats are not fought, they are predicted. From the outside, it looks almost mystical how Traoré's team manages to stop plots before they unfold, intercept attacks before they start, and dissolve conspiracies before they gather courage. But the truth isn't magic. It's a method, a system built on anticipation and silence. Every day begins the same way. Before dawn, the team reviews what they call the horizon file. It's not about the next 24 hours, it's about the next 72. They map movements, conversations, financial transfers, and even moods within the army. Patterns are everything. If a commander visits the same cafe twice in a week, they notice. If a foreign contact suddenly cancels a trip, they ask why. Their logic is simple. Coup plots don't start in bunkers, they start in routine. The masked man, Traoré's ever-present sentinel, leads proximity analysis. His job isn't just to stand guard, it's to read energy. When Traoré meets ministers, he watches reactions, body posture, and breathing rhythms. He's trained to detect dishonesty from micro-expressions, the kind of training you'd find in intelligence agencies, not military ranks. For him, a tremor of the hand means more than a speech. Khadafi, the fighter, controls the response. He drills his sub-team in close-quarters tactics adapted to African terrain, not Western urban combat, but dust, heat, and unpredictability. His men can switch from escort to engagement in seconds, blending old-school guerrilla tactics with modern coordination. They don't wait for orders. They act from instinct polished by routine. And then there's number 3, the quiet strategist, the invisible thread holding everything together. He doesn't lead soldiers, he leads information. Each intercepted signal, rumor, or shift in loyalty passes through him. He ranks threats not by scale, but by potential impact on morale. Because Traoré's greatest weapon isn't firepower, it's unity. A fractured army can fall faster than an ambushed one. What makes this doctrine revolutionary is its fusion of intelligence, psychology, and symbolism. In the Sahel, wars aren't just fought with bullets, they're fought with narratives. The West calls these men loyalists, but within Burkina Faso, they are seen as disciples of sovereignty. Their silence is deliberate, a message that power doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to be present, unseen, unshaken. Their operations extend beyond defense. When Traoré travels, they arrive days in advance, embedding within local security teams, identifying weak links. They run what insiders call mirror drills, simulated coup rehearsals against themselves, stress testing their own system. If any reaction time exceeds 5 seconds, the plan is rewritten. But behind their efficiency lies a moral question Traoré himself seems aware of. How much control is too much? Because absolute loyalty creates absolute dependence. The guards decide who gets close, who stays away, and even which ministers' vehicles can approach the convoy. In many ways, they don't just protect the presidency, they define its perimeter of trust, and yet this structure works. It's why the captain walks into hostile regions without fear. Why, despite constant Western media predictions of instability, does his government stand firm? The invisible doctrine isn't about strength, it's about stability through anticipation. Still, this kind of precision has consequences. The tighter the system, the more isolated it becomes. And isolation, if unchecked, can blur the line between vigilance and paranoia. So the next question isn't how the guards function. We've seen that. It's what happens when their silence becomes the loudest voice in Burkina Faso's leadership. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Every great system eventually faces the same question. When does protection stop being protection and start becoming control? Within Burkina Faso's inner circle, that question isn't theoretical. It defines the line between survival and suffocation. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's guards were built to shield him from betrayal, but the stronger that shield becomes, the more it isolates him from the world beyond it. What began as a fortress against enemies is slowly becoming a filter through which all information, emotion, and access must pass. This paradox is familiar to every revolution that survives long enough to consolidate. Power attracts loyalty, but loyalty, when absolute, reshapes power itself. Traoré's guards have mastered efficiency to such an extent that even his closest allies now measure their words carefully around him. Not out of fear of him, but fear of being misread by those who protect him. The guards' silence carries more weight than any minister's speech. Their dominance in the chain of trust has unintended consequences. For instance, they decide which reports reach Traoré first, which faces enter his meetings, and which voices are safe. It's not censorship, it's prioritization. But in the volatile theater of Sahel politics, prioritization is power. Whoever controls proximity controls perception, and whoever controls perception controls reality. Yet, what makes this situation different from other African regimes is that Traoré seems aware of the danger. Insiders describe him as cautious but not paranoid. He still meets soldiers, visits provinces, and speaks directly to civilians. But you can sense the tension in every frame of footage. The invisible choreography between his confidence and the alertness of the men around him. Every handshake is timed, every smile, scanned. Still, this structure serves its purpose. Burkina Faso has avoided the instability that tore its neighbors apart. The intelligence leaks have stopped. The coup chatter that once echoed through barracks now dies before it leaves a room. Traoré's leadership has become a case study in how security, when properly humanized, can act as both armor and compass. But that balance is fragile. If his guards ever misinterpret caution for disloyalty or loyalty for weakness, the entire philosophy could collapse under its own vigilance. The very men who keep the revolution alive could, unintentionally, suffocate it. That's the tragic rhythm of protection. The closer it clings to the flame, the greater its risk of snuffing it out. But perhaps that's the price of reshaping a nation in real time. Traoré's defenders are not relics of a paranoid state. They're products of a new African realism. They operate on the understanding that sovereignty doesn't just need visionaries. It needs guardians willing to bear the moral weight of what protection demands. And so, Burkina Faso stands at a crossroads. The guards have become both symbols and safeguards, proof that independence can be defended from within, but also a reminder that trust, once monopolized, can become tyranny in disguise. The question now isn't whether Traoré can stay alive. He's done that. The question is whether he can stay connected to the people, to the truth, and to the revolution that gave him purpose. Because in the end, every wall built to protect power eventually asks its builder the same thing: will you live behind it, or die because of it? Every revolution, sooner or later, outgrows its guns. It reaches a point where the question is no longer who protects the leader, but what the leader's protection has come to represent. That's where Captain Ibrahim Traoré stands now. Not just as a man shielded by loyal guards, but as the symbol of a continent learning how to guard its own sovereignty. Because this story was never really about the men with masks and rifles. It's about what their existence says about the world around them. In the Sahel, power doesn't just face enemies, it faces infiltration. Every foreign handshake carries intent, every intelligence leak carries influence. For decades, African leaders were protected by others: the French Foreign Legion, UN contingents, or private firms hired from abroad. Their safety came at the cost of sovereignty. Traoré flipped that logic. He built protection from within, African hands guarding African decisions. That's what makes his bodyguard unit more than a security detail. They are a statement, a reminder that Africa no longer needs guardians who speak another language. And yet, this choice comes with a heavy moral weight. The moment protection becomes symbolic, it stops being invisible. These men have become both shield and spotlight. Every action they take reflects the credibility of Traoré's revolution. If they overstep, the West calls it repression. If they falter, the same critics call it incompetence. They walk the razor's edge between necessity and optics, between defending a cause and defining it. Still, there's something undeniably transformative in what they've achieved. Burkina Faso, once mocked as a coup-prone state, now radiates discipline. The streets of Ouagadougou move with a kind of uneasy calm, not the calm of fear, but the calm that follows regained control. It's the calm of a nation no longer asking permission to breathe. But this calm also comes with silence, and silence can be deceptive. Because even the most loyal guard can't protect an idea forever. Guns can secure a moment, they can't secure a legacy. What keeps nations alive isn't fear of failure, but continuity of conviction. Traoré's challenge now is to translate loyalty into institutions, to ensure that the discipline of his guards becomes the discipline of a government. In that sense, the presidential shield is a bridge between eras, between the instability that defined Africa's past and the sovereignty that could define its future. Their existence forces a deeper question upon every leader across the continent. Can you truly call yourself independent if someone else ensures your safety? For Traoré, the answer has already been given, in the silence of those who stand behind him, watchful and unblinking. But history will judge whether that silence becomes the foundation of a new order or the echo of another cycle. Because revolutions are not measured by how they begin, they're measured by what survives them. Can a revolution truly stay pure when its survival depends on secrecy? Let us know in the comments section. Are these men guarding a leader, or guarding an idea that threatens the old world order? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.